Welcome to Amazon Answers. I'm Jared, and today we are discussing Wonder Woman 750, the special tribute issue that came out a while back. So this is the very special cover I have. It's hardcover, and it's a collection of a bunch of different stories written by such writers as like Joel Jones. The cover's done by Joel Jones. You have like Steve Orlando, Greg Rucka, Gail Simone. There's even like Scott Snyder, a few writers that you wouldn't expect with Wonder Woman, or like you would expect, and it's really more of like a tribute to this wonderful character that we all love very much. So let's go on to that. And first off, let's discuss the fact that also Athena is 97% funded. So we are all literally almost there. So if anyone wants to back it, just go ahead and check that out, and we can do that. I will put the link in the chat so you all can go back it. Hang on, let me go do that, and then we can get to actually doing this. All right, here we go. It's in the chat. Oh, it's like here. There we go. So let's do this. All right. So we are going to go to Wonder Woman 750. And this is like around DC started doing a lot of these tribute issues around this time, because this is also like around the time that Action 1000 came out, and they made that a hardcover like tribute issue to Superman. So they did that. And I'm going to go ahead and do this. All right, here we go. So what we have here is Wonder Woman 750, and I love the image of her holding up like the globe, because it's very reminiscent of Atlas from like Greek mythology. So I guess that's what they were going for. And we get this cool insert that's like a representation of all the different Wonder Woman title marquees, which I love. And then we got, all right, so we are going to skip through this. So this next one is actually the continuation of the Steve Orlando Wonder Woman run. And I believe this is actually the conclusion of it. So for those of you that want to know what this is about, so Cheetah has the God Killer sword, and she has killed a bunch of gods. And because she doesn't essentially like the gods, because of obviously she's cursed. And we see that so Aphrodite was killed. So Wonder Woman just broke up with Steve Trevor. The God Killer sword was used to break Wonder Woman's gauntlets. That's why she doesn't have them here. Which by the way, also very happy that Steve Trevor broke up with Wonder Woman. Very happy about that. Thank you, G. Willow Wilson. And we get, I believe that's Hera, if I remember correctly, and Diana and Silencer. So Silencer is a very interesting character. So around this time, you had death metal had come out, and you had like the dark. Oh, actually, no, it was metal in and of itself. It wasn't death metal. So in metal, they introduced the dark matter characters, and this is where you get like the Incredible Hulk version of Damage. You got Sideways, who was basically Spider-Man. And in this one, you got Silencer, who she's basically like an assassin and such. So Wonder Woman uses the lasso and essentially tries to talks down Cheetah. She also steals the lasso from Hera and manages to like snap Cheetah out of the trance, and she puts on the tiara. This is the other thing that I really love about this. Each of these issues in and of themselves, each of these little stories effectively tell like a component of Diana's character, like her compassion, her warrior prowess, because that's part of it, but also her like the diplomat and the warrior, in other words. And this is why the anthology thing works really well for Wonder Woman. So Diana goes back to Themyscira in a cool new invisible jet, returns the items that were stolen, and then alongside Hippolyta, they reforge the gauntlets. And the only change that this really has is that until like it's undone later. I forget which storyline they undid this, but the gauntlets essentially have those little forge lines on them. That's it. That's essentially what that is. And then she returns, and then it's like she finds another it's another storyline that continues on with Steve Orlando. So in this next one, gross. So in this next one, written by Gail Simone, a woman, a girl that like has her own powers, essentially saves people from a fire, and Wonder Woman teams up with her, has lunch with her, and this is the other thing. So this one talks about, again, Diana's like ability with like children and maybe being a mother. This would have worked better as a setup for Diana wanting to have a kid, but then Tom King came on the book 50 issues later. And then it's also like Diana helping helping this kid. It's actually really cool. I like it. So in this one by Mariko Tamaki, this is a good one. So you think it's like in an FBI like interrogation room. So it's like a crime show. And Diana's being interrogated by these people about like her saving like someone from a burning building and such. And she's basically like recounting, kind of like in Black Ops 1 or Battlefield, I think it was 3, when the protagonist is recounting the events to like an interrogator. And then it turns out, so she's being interrogated by Ares. But this is why this story highlights Diana's like intelligence, because she turns the table on Ares, and it turns out she was interrogating him the entire time. I just love that. She flips the script on him. And I love where the Amazon's like, well played. And Diana says, yes, it was well played. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And then they bring him to the Themyscira and put him in a cell. I really love that issue. Then over here, we get an issue by Greg Rucka, and I believe that's Greg Rucka. It's Greg Rucka and Nicola Scott, because, of course, we have to have this. And let me see. I just want to confirm who was the creative team on this, I believe. Let me go to here. Give me 1 second. Yes, it was Greg Rucka. So, solid story. And this one involves, like, Diana and I think Cersei, and they're trying to essentially help Cheetah essentially snap out of the like they're trying to give Cheetah like a chance at redemption, a chance to choose life, in other words. Now, it's very interesting about this. She asked Cheetah, okay, you can be free if you choose who you are. Say your name, Barbara Ann. And then she just says Cheetah. In other words, choosing the cheetah, which is why, again, Rucka kind of undid. He keeps trying to do the Wonder Woman Cheetah redemption thing, but it just doesn't work. That's why I didn't enjoy the Cheetah Justice League book, because that storyline has already been done before, number one. Number two, it's been done better by other people. So it just came across as very petty, I think. So then we get on Themyscira, we get more of like younger Diana telling the story of Hercules and stuff. And then we also see like, I believe this is the story of Hestia, which, it's Nubia. And it's Diana back then learning, thinking about the outside world. And because remember, Diana was always the inquisitive person that was very like wondering what the outside world looked like. And it's like, what was it like outside the Themysciran shores? So you have this. It's also in a lot of versions, like in the versions that don't involve Steve Trevor in her like origin, which is actually in my mind more peak. What happens is essentially Diana is like sneaks off the island because she's curious about like the island. Essentially, wants to be essentially it's like they want to be like they. She wants to like explore what the world looks like. So that's where like that comes from. And it's like, then she just leaves. She did that in Flashpoint. She did that in a few other books, which is why I say that while Steve Trevor is plot device the character just to get her off the island, in all reality, I mean, in all reality, the he's not really that important to Wonder Woman, period. I'm just gonna say that essentially. So then we get, okay, so this is the only one that I'm not a big fan of, and it's purely because of the art. Unless it's like a trippy book like Harley Quinn or Martian Manhunter, I'm not the biggest fan of Riley Rossmo's art. Now, again, it's hyper dependent on what book he's on, but it's more of, because I'm not the biggest fan with how Riley draws Wonder Woman. And I'm like, okay, this is fine. And this is more of like the fighter Diana. I would still prefer if you did more of like, if like he stuck to like Harley Quinn or like Martian Manhunter, the books that can really afford a kind of a wonky like here's time, because the proportions are kind of weird in this one. So then we get a book by Marguerite Bennett, and this is like an issue about the Bombshells universe, which is essentially all of the like DC women as like, so you know how like in World War II there were those women painted on like jets and bombers and stuff. It's essentially that, where with this it's essentially like she shows up in World War II, and this is the one where Diana is 100% like with women in this. It's established this is one of those universes. We also see Kara, who is like more of a Soviet, so Soviet Supergirl. That's interesting. And it's like she sees Mara and stuff. I'm just going back real quick. And then it's like she essentially forms an alliance of all of the female characters and fights in World War II and such. And that's the Bombshells design for Wonder Woman. And I always really liked it. I feel like that's like a very unique design for Wonder Woman that you could actually do pretty solid work with. And so then this one, and NJ will be a big fan of this one. So in this one, it's Vanessa Capitalis, like in prison. It's like a recovery facility because of like what happened with like Silver Swan, and Diana is fighting Silver Swan, and she like essentially subdues her. And again, here is the other part about this. I've said this when I did the episode a couple of weeks ago about the Asgard arc for Wonder Woman. And the thing that good Wonder Woman writers get, good ones, I want to be clear on this, is that with Diana, when you deal with like her like mercy, if you will, this is written by Vita Ayala, one of the great things Vita did. When you deal with Diana, you can have her be like this badass, this warrior. However, when the minute you actually do it right and transition her more toward being a hero and like more of like having mercy upon Diana, I mean upon like her enemies, like this, like she did with Thor, even, that's when you know you actually get like a lot of good stuff. And Diana visits Vanessa just to say, you can get through this. You will get better. And I'm like, yeah, that is 100% what I would say is like Wonder Woman through and through. Is that image of Diana coming to visit, who is essentially her sister, Tom King, not secret lover or like someone that has a crush on her, sister. And then we get Scott Snyder and Brian Hitch's story, which is in World War II. And this is when like Wonder Woman, so this is the funny part about this. This was kind of when Diana was in World War II. And in this, it like shows that like, oh, Wonder Woman saved FDR or like the World's Fair from like a German soldier. And then it's like more of like the effect of like Wonder Woman, and it's like how she inspired like Alan Scott to come out of the darkness. Now, this is still fine to do because since it's Wonder Woman, you can just say, oh, it's Hippolyta. Because remember, Hippolyta is Wonder Woman in World War II now, according to New History of the DC Universe, which is the best decision they could have made for that. So it's like in here, it still works. I mean, even if I were writing Wonder Woman and I wanted to make Diana not the immortal person, but make it so like she is more of like she's the modern Wonder Woman and her mother was World War II, what I would just do is essentially essentially what I would do is like have Diana going through like let's say a museum to Wonder Woman, if you will. And then you see like a statue of World War II Wonder Woman. And then Diana says, they confuse me with my mother all the time. That's the way that you can easily like undo that. That's why you could easily like, I don't know if the right term is retcon, but essentially make it so recanonize it that Diana is modern Wonder Woman, which they already did now with New History. So it's not that big of a deal. So then here, and I believe we have some of the covers. I'm going to go bring this. I'm going to go to the covers. Well, we also have the original Golden Age Wonder Woman story of Steve Trevor crash landing on the island. She brings him to her people. They nurse him back to health. And then Diana petitions to be sent to Man's World. Well, this is the other thing where Hippolyta tells Diana everything about the island. And then it's like, the Germans were intercepting Steve Trevor, and he got shot down. And that's when the contest happens. Diana's revealed, and she becomes Wonder Woman. So that's essentially what that is. So that's Wonder Woman 750. It's a bunch of stories that really like nail who Diana is and what her character should be. So I do really appreciate the cool part about it is that you have all these different creatives doing one take on one, writing the same character. However, what you end up doing really well is you end up showcasing all of the parts of Diana that you should showcase. Like that's the fun part about Wonder Woman 750 is that each issue serves as like you can have all these different versions, all these different writers each take a different crack at the character, but they all feel consistent with the character. So it's not like one feels drastically different from like, let's say, the other, and like one doesn't feel like Wonder Woman essentially. Cameron says, so we have another template on how Diana can be written well with writers still a problem. Yeah, exactly. It was because here's the other thing, Cameron. The other issue that DC has is like a lot of is that since writers don't see Diana as like I'm gonna say something that sounds harsh. They don't see Diana as a character. They see her more as an obligation. Because remember, with the contract, the only part, and what's up, Tevia? The only part of Wonder Woman that like they acknowledge is the fact that they have to publish a certain number of Wonder Woman issues in order to keep the copyright. So if they only see it as like a obligation, they're not going to put their all into it, or they're going to do like what Tom King does and write it as a way to pitch books he would rather be writing, like Jason Todd, God forbid, or like Detective Chimp, by his own admission, mind you. So that's what some writers will do. And so it's like, okay, it's like I get that you would rather, yeah, it is sad and depressing, Tevia. I get that like there are other characters that you would rather be writing, but here's the thing: if you're writing Wonder Woman, please write Wonder Woman. Well, the other thing is that Tom King would clearly rather write a Steve Trevor series because he keeps taking every opportunity to glaze Steve Trevor. And honestly, I said this on Twitter, and I think the side effect of King's glazing on Steve is that that's where the men should have no place in Wonder Woman books at all comes from, or at least that's where it was like pushed like extremely far. Whereas that was a thing. It just wasn't that big of a thing from what I remember. So it's like when you deal with like that, I do, and I honestly feel like eventually they will, like let me put it this way. If I had my way, I would just make an editorial edict. We're not giving Diana a love interest. Focus on her. That's it. That's what Post Crisis did so well. Like, yeah, she had some people that she was like dating, if you will, but Diana was still the focus. Tevia says, which honestly I hate to say it. What you're saying makes sense, especially since King's. Yeah, exactly. It's like with Trinity. The reason why I say Trinity has to be retconned, like, do not make her canon at all, because that book affects canon. Like it sets up Steve coming back to life, and because in that he has a romance between Jason, Todd, and Trinity. You're telling me Todd does, with the minute Jason meets Trinity, it's not going to be kind of like, it's not going to be kind of like uncomfortable since he had a crush on the girl when they met. So I'm like, no one thought this through. So that's why Trinity needs to be like retconned out, because I'm sorry, at that point, that's what makes the character irredeemable in my mind. That's when I'm like, no, you absolutely cannot do this. You absolutely cannot salvage this character, because then, like this way with Trinity, that's not, and you can't say that book is not canon because that sets up Steve coming back to life. So really, it's like you can't call that just a fun series and stuff, which honestly makes no sense. Which, here's the other thing. I honestly believe that King is going to not have Trinity last, because it's interesting how he has Steve Trevor say that I have to die, otherwise you don't exist. And it's like, interesting. So it's like, if he comes back, if you undo the death, she doesn't exist. So I kind of wonder there. So that would be very interesting there, if all of a sudden they're not canon anymore. That would be fun. And then we can just check her, then we can just get rid of that of that person. That'd be fun. I would really enjoy that. Wait, wouldn't this mean that Trinity goes bye-bye? No, because baby Trinity was created because of the Steve death. So if they undo the Steve death, like, again, I've said my theory on how the Wonder War ends, that they still can't beat Sovereign's daughter. So they go back in time to undo the whole the whole, not matriarch's birth, but they undo Emily going into that bar and killing all those men, because that's setting part all these things in motion. But when you undo that, that also undoes Steve's death. And then if you undo Steve's death, Diana is not like mourning. And if Diana's not mourning, or doesn't have a reason to mourn, then she doesn't create Trinity. That's the thing. Tying Trinity so deeply to Wonder Woman's to that particular event just leads to that character being hurt. And honestly, again, I would say regardless of if it undoes it, they need to do that, because otherwise, because the minute he did that Jason Todd BS, that's when I'm like, okay, I could have kind of like done with that. I would have been like, I would have compromised and said, okay, we can redeem this. But no, because of the fact that this whole thing is canon and it does affect continuity, like if it sets up Steve coming back, it affects canon. So it's like, once you do that, that whole series is a big problem, beyond the fact that you had Trinity mocking the trauma of another character. So I'm like, I'm sorry. This entire thing is like, that's when I'm like, okay, you need to get rid of this character. That would be my thing. So basically everything we said back to the status quo, Tom King run being erased was not a bad idea. Yeah, honestly, there is like a scenario where they do that, Tevia, because then that results in the run being a self-contained loop. Like he can just say, "Oh yeah, my run exists in the self-contained time pocket" or something like that. Like it happens, but yeah. And if you get rid of Trinity, you can. While the events, well, actually, the events don't happen if you do that. Well, it's like you can just ignore everything happened. The book still happened. It's still there, and you can just slap a black label on it, and you're good to go. That's really where I think this goes. Now, again, I could be wrong. I want to be very clear on this. It's not like I'm not saying this is guaranteed to happen. I'm just saying there is setup for this to happen. That's it. That's all I'm going to say there. But yeah, but let's see. What other questions about Wonder Woman do you guys have? Anything you guys would like to hear? It kind of reminds me of how Grant Morrison's Green Lantern run is self-contained from beginning to end. Yeah, but they never retconned that out of continuity. They never really like undid anything from that. Well, they never really got rid of anything. It was more like they just ignore it. So it's like that'll be a different thing. However, I kind of get what they're doing. So that's kind of how I would like arrange that and do that. That's kind of the way that you could make this work. By the way, real quick, let's take a quick break so I can play the Athena trailer for you guys.
My home has been invaded, my people slaughtered, and I could not do anything to stop it. Not again. I will not lose another home, another family. I am Princess Lyra of the planet Sintragar, Athena, the goddess of thunder, and this is my story.
All right. So what other questions do you guys have about Wonder Woman and anything that you guys would like to see? What other questions do you guys have? Any questions as it applies to DC and Wonder Woman and such? Any questions as it applies to, and thank you, Tevia. Any questions that applies to like Wonder Woman, DC Comics, how they handle the character, what we could see in the future, and stuff beyond that. By the way, so I want to show you guys. So I got a 3D printer for Christmas, and I've been going crazy with it. Like I printed this, like it's the Wonder Woman logo right there. It came in, it printed in parts, and I glued it. I also made the statue of absolute Wonder Woman. Like there's her giant sword. And I made a BVS batarang. I also have a Green Lantern battery that I printed that's in another room. But yeah, so I've been really going crazy with the 3D printer. I think might as well start a new print. But yeah, so what other questions do you guys have? It could be anything you guys would like to hear about for Wonder Woman. As for a future Wonder Woman, I personally would love an actual animated series. Well, again, as Robert and I have said, that is very like complicated. But yeah, I would love a Wonder Woman animated series for sure. It's something that I think they really do need to do. But it's like it really depends on A, if they get the right pitch and if the pitch is approved by the Marstons. Because remember, that needs to be approved by the Marstons. But yeah, but you can, yeah. So it's like Any other questions about Wonder Woman DC Comics in general or anything like that? Tom King run does get retconned. What writer do you think will take over? I would say that's a good question, Davia. I would say a safe bet would be like, I would imagine, if I had to guess who would be like the next writer, honestly, a safe bet would be like Jeremy Adams or someone like that. I would say Jeremy Adams is the best bet for that, because Adams is a writer that like has the like cachet for it. Plus the fact also Adams is like known as like one of the best like writers at DC right now, and he could use a higher profile assignment for sure. But yeah, so what other questions do you guys have? Could be anything that relates to Wonder Woman. Anything at all. Anything at all. Honestly, how were they able to capture Ares? Well, again, because remember, the way that issue goes is they tricked Ares into capturing Diana, and then they turned the tables on him with like some force fields and stuff and illusions. So really, it was like Ares got captured by himself for himself. Speaking of Jeremy Adams, if you've been, I've loved the Green Lantern run. His Green Lantern run is amazing, and I'm showing it to Britt because I'm showing her that like, hey, DC does some pretty cool stuff with the characters other than Superman and Wonder Woman. So if you like that, there's that. But there's a lot of really fun stuff there. By the way, speaking of Wonder Woman, I want to bring this up. So, Gunn has officially refuted that Wonder Woman is going to be in the Man of Tomorrow movie, as I figured he would. Now, as for the Super Wonder Legacy episode that's coming out tomorrow, it's still valid because Britt and I talk about what their relationship could be in the DCU anyway. So it's not like, oh my gosh, they just refuted this episode. No, it's fine. We'll still be able to do that. But yeah, so we have that. Let's see. What? So we have that. So likely that individual that's being casted is like Barda or like Maxima or something like that, because it's like those are the characters that I think would work with Gunn's sensibilities of liking the more obscure DC Comics characters. It just depends. So we'll see what happens with that for sure. Yeah. So, what other questions do you guys have as it relates to Wonder Woman or anything like that? Yeah. So we'll see what happens with that, or with that continuing on. But yeah. But in terms of, so let's see, what can we do next? Let's do our like. Okay, so we have half hour left. All right. So yeah, it's ask me any questions you guys want to do, or like what other episodes you would like to see, because I currently, in terms of Wonder Woman Wednesday, I was thinking of doing more of the animated ones because you guys really responded to that. And particularly in terms of like the DC AMU for next week, and then the DC Tomorrowverse for that one, we could do that one. As for anything else is in Wonder Woman, I'm curious, why hasn't DC Comics given us another Wonder Girl book? Because again, it's like Wonder Woman kind of hasn't sold as well to in recent times. I mean, before Absolute Wonder Woman, let's do it before Absolute Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was not as high a seller as she should be. So it's like DC didn't see the monetary incentive of doing another Wonder book. Now, however, when it comes to like Absolute Wonder Woman or anything like that, it looks like they are able to like it looks like that's like the one that it looks like there's that. It would essentially look like that DC is that DC would yeah, that DC would go in that direction, in other words. When does Tom King come off the book? Hey, what's up, David? So likely, if I had to guess again, I would say issue 40. So he's coming back at issue 31 because 29 and 30 are the Stephanie Williams issues. And then 31, he said it's 8 issues. So 31 to 38 would be that one. And then actually, no, 31 to 39. And then I would say 40 is the like ending issue, like the wrap up issue, if they want to do that, or if they want the new writer to start at issue 40. But likely I would do like, honestly, I would say issue 40 or so. He's not going to get to 100 like he originally thought. So basically his Batman run, which never got to issue 100, kind of like that. Exactly. Kind of like that. So I would say yeah, it would be history repeating itself, in other words. But yeah, essentially that. And if they really want to give him like a chance, if it felt like, because the thing that really have they announced the next writer? No, they haven't yet, David. They haven't confirmed if he is leaving the book. That's why I'm still like, okay, it could happen. It could also not happen because they haven't formally done that. I will say the signs that point to it is the fact that King has been talking about he doesn't feel fulfilled doing in continuity stuff, doing like the not in continuity, doing what's the word, ongoings. Number one. Number two, he started talking about other projects would want to do. Number two. Number three, he has said at Comic Cons that he may be leaving the book early because it's yeah, the movie stuff, David, exactly, the movie stuff. That's the part where I think that's gonna be the one. And it's like once he leaves it, then we're in the good area. He also has the Mr. Mirror. Yeah, exactly. The DCU series is where I think that him being so involved in the DCU, ironically, is what most likely will get him off his book, the off the Wonder Woman book, and honestly away from doing ongoing stuff. Likely it would be like he wouldn't do like ongoing like DC shows and stuff. That's at least what I would think. I mean, he's the most famous thing he ever wrote. It's a maxi series. Yeah, that's the other thing, because it's like, look, if what he's known for are writing those mini series, let's say, then it's like, why wouldn't you just? That's why I think it would be a better fit for him if he was like more of the, if he just did the other stuff, if he just did the work with mini and maxi series, is that would be the sweet spot that I think he would really work best, because again, the books he is the most known for are his minis and maxi series. That's the way that it kind of works with, like case in point, what books of his are being adapted? Not the Batman stuff. I think Gunn picked him because his best things are condensed storylines. That could also be a factor there as well. That could definitely also be a factor, for sure. It has a start, a middle, and an end. Yeah, he works more if it like has a beginning, a middle, and an end, because he can't do filler. He has to do a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's done. That's it. But it's like, and likely what they would do is if King leaves the Wonder Woman book, they'll market it as, oh yeah, he's just moving on because because of the DCU stuff, and it's not like oh, your thing, your Wonder Woman run failed. Honestly, since I have read so many comics now, I have noticed it's super hard to find writers that are good at episodic stories. Yeah, exactly, because too many of them essentially overdo what they have for story wise. In other words, they bite off more than they could chew. Why did Tom King just tell us Wonder Woman story in a graphic as a graphic novel from the start? Because DC wanted him on the main on an actual ongoing book. That's what they asked him. That's definitely what they asked him, but it's like, arguably, I would say that has like blown up in their face, at least from my perspective. But who knows at this point? I'm just a humble YouTuber. All of the last 2 years, I mean, Marvel was just structured as 10-issue series on purpose. Well, the other thing is, like, with Marvel, a lot of what they do is they market it like that, because that way they could say, oh, this series didn't flop. It was just like we just got rid of we just ended it because it was always meant to be that. Let's see. They don't have the talent they think to think past one. Oh yeah, exactly. Trust me, bro. DC and Image are likely the only publishers right now that have found writers capable of multi-arc storytelling. Yeah, exactly. Dude, X-Men is so bad. Join the club, my brother. There's a reason why I haven't started reading X-Men books. It's because most of them are like, no. Most of them are like really, 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 really dumb as well. Most of them are very like, I take you mean you haven't? I've read almost every X-Men book since McKay took over. Yeah, the only X-Men books that I've really enjoyed are like the Emma Frost series and stuff. When is Wonder Woman Day? I want to be caught up. Wonder Woman Day would probably be when she debuted. So I would say in late October. So you have plenty of time to read as much Wonder Woman content as you would like, for sure. Two years of mid. The story Emma book came out is really that came out in 20 is really odd. I really liked it. That's just me. It could be because I'm a big Emma Frost fan, so could be why. Yeah, the X-Men books make no sense whatsoever, and I abandoned. That event, like. The thing is, look at like the top 10 graphic novels for that came out around this time period, and you'll see it's it's like the only Marvel book, the only one, was Ultimate Spider-Man, and it's the book that they are ending. So, hello, maybe you ought to really put a little bit more care into that. But the problem is, Marvel has the syndrome of they're not doing anything to actually do something. They're not really. They don't have the incentive, because guess what? they think that, oh, we're just Marvel, we don't have to worry about it. They'll still buy it. Honestly, King should just write for Elseworlds. Yeah, exactly. He writes great on Elseworlds because he doesn't have to worry about stuff. Ultimate Spider-Man is the biggest disappointment. Well, yeah, but it's like that's the only Marvel trade paperback that was selling, and they nuke it. Isn't that funny? That's totally Marvel. You have something that people like, and then you just destroy it. Oh yeah, Ultimate Wolverine is so good. But I don't know. We'll see, dude. Actually, speaking of Wonder Woman, what is your thoughts on Wonder Woman team for Jane? Yeah, that we gotta talk about that. So, for Spider-Man, Superman, the crossover coming out, it's announced, written by Jason Aaron with art by Russell Dauterman. It's been announced that Wonder Woman is going to be included in that story, and it's going to be crossing over with Jane Foster Thor. So that's an interesting one because I've long said that like of the characters they could have picked to cross over, Jane Foster Thor is one that I could see like actually working for them. The problem is then you also have like essentially a team up is going to be huge. Yeah, exactly. It's like which characters do I think would work? Now here's the thing. Jason Aaron writing Thor, I am very concerned because being the fact that he's like the obnoxious male feminist, the problem is what that inevitably leads to is him doing like ridiculously like cringy Wonder Woman lines. So I'm like, I want to say there would be more like control, but the problem is that's on the Marvel side. Mm-hmm. So that could be a problem. But, you know, we'll see. I mean, it could be. I still think it's going to be great. And I like that Wonder Woman's involved. And I also like that Russell Dauterman will be drawing Wonder Woman. Like, I've long said that Dauterman needed to write Wonder Woman. And again, because he's exclusive to Marvel, he couldn't do that. But the fact that they're actually doing it now, I'm like, oh, hell yes. All right, yeah. Jane, Tom King is writing Mary Jane and Lois Lane. That what I'm very concerned about. Yeah, Gwen Stacy. I can't even believe they greenlit that Gwen Stacy book. Oh yeah, yes, that's something that I'm like, why would you do that? Like, what? But it was later revealed it wasn't Gwen Stacy. But still, I'm like, you did the Gwenpool thing, but you character assassinated Gwenpool. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea, guys. Let's character assassinate a character that people already like, but let's like undermine the loss that Spider-Man had, essentially. Yeah, the unstoppable Gwenpool essentially is what we're talking about. Yeah, so what other questions do you guys have about Wonder Woman? You can ask any question about Wonder Woman, and then I'm going to end the stream. So any final questions you guys have before I hop off for the day? It was cool seeing I gotta go. My dude. Yeah, have a good one, David. Yeah, any final questions before I wrap up? So while we do that, in terms of what's coming out next for Comics League, obviously we have the book that's about to get funded. And in terms of Super Wonder Legacy tomorrow will be live at about, I would say 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, and it's going to be about how Superman and Wonder Woman could interact in the DCU in the movie universe, and let's see what else, and also in terms of that's another one. In terms of Wonder Woman Wednesday, I'll probably be discussing and evaluating Wonder Woman the DC AMU, so in other words, the Just League Dark, Just League War one, and then in terms of Under Two Capes, I gotta get back with Robert, but we're probably going to talk about Dark Knight Steel. And then for movie night, we haven't really decided on that. But in terms of Super Wonder Legacy, Britt and I will be comparing Superman and Wonder Woman to Silver Surfer and Shalabal. Okay, actually, now we have Spider-Man and Superman, and they're doing the crossovers. The actual, if we were gonna, I would say yeah. And in terms of what Marvel character, if they're smart, they would do like Carol, like Captain Marvel, or the other one that I could see them doing really well and actually doing like right would be like Storm. One of those two, I think, would be the choice for Marvel Comics if they were really smart. Now then again, this is Marvel Comics we're talking about, but we'll see on that. But that's where that's the crossover that I would say is the most likely. But yeah, so I think that's a good place to leave it. Stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Steve Trevor, Steve Never. He belongs to the bottom of a hydraulic press. Is always the max about for life. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.